Hey, this is Lindsay, and we're out here with the 2020 Yamaha YZ250F. Now, let's just be honest here, it's a BNG bike. Bold new graphics, but in this case we do have their special edition gray model that I rode today. But yeah, there are actually no changes in sense of update from the 2019 model. So we're going to talk a little bit about the updates from last year and just expand on some of my thoughts riding this bike last year and into this year. So the changes last year were quite dramatic. We had an overall chassis, bodywork, just an overall generation change of the bike. They really worked on making the bike more compact. We went from a convex radiator shroud design to a concave. So it was the fact that the shrouds got wider earlier than anyone else's. It had that concave design where it expanded early. Now it's got a concave, more like normal bike. It stays skinny and then bows outwards as it reaches the maximum area. It is a little bit bigger than some of the bikes in certain situations, but it's definitely come a long ways. The other really big ergonomic change came from the seat profile and overall height. At the far rear point of the seat, it's down almost 15 millimeters from the 2018 model, the prior generation. And in the center where you sit, it's down about 7 to 8 millimeters. So this is really big for me, having short legs, short arms. It's a lot better when you get off the back of the bike. The other thing the seat profile really helps with being able to drop it is the sag the Yamaha guys like to run. We hear a lot of people, oh, I'm gonna run, 105, 107. Yamaha definitely responds a little bit better having a taller rear. Honestly, they always try to start us off around that 100 millimeters. And if possible, we really, kind of have to fight to get that bike to 102, 104 and bring it down. Because the rear profile, the seat was so tall feeling, it just felt like you always wanted to drop the rear end of the bike, but that would give up so much front end traction on this bike, it would start to push, and you get into the comments where people would be like, the Yamaha, it just pushes in the corners, I don't have that front end feel I like, but they really do respond well being a bit tall in the rear. For changes I made on the bike today ergonomically, we do have the 2-point bar positions, plus the bar mounts, they're reversible. I flipped them to the back just to be able to get a little farther back on the bike due to my short arms. Then other than that, we did drop the sag from 100 to 102, just because I don't naturally get very far back on the bike, keep it a little bit more settled under braking, under acceleration, a little bit open on high speed to keep it squatted under acceleration, and a little bit softer on the fork. In this case, just to get it to settle a little bit more, I was going about 1 to 2 clicks softer, just on some of the more hard-packed low-speed corners, just to make sure on the entry, if it wasn't a very deep rut, that I would get a little bit better comfort. But honestly, on the main track here at Paula today, it really was great in deep, soft rollers, big outsides, just really aggressive sections. Like I said, the chassis comfort really complements the little bit more held up and more aggressive suspension state we have. As for the engine, there's been quite a few updates from the last generation bike into this one, other than the obvious of the bottom end where they changed the cases for electric start, try to keep the weight down. They went to a bigger diameter clutch, get more torque capacity out of the clutch, get more usability of it. The cylinder head, they've continued to decrease the exhaust and intake angles. Everybody knows they've got that straight shot coming in from the front. Well, they've done everything they can to continue to bring that up steeper and steeper. So there's less intake angle into the valves. It just drops the fuel and air in there at a cleaner angle and just gets it in the engine better. And the big change maybe some people didn't notice last year because it's kind of hidden by the engine mounts is the exhaust pipe normally just comes out the back of the cylinder at a pretty level plane. Now it comes up at an angle and then starts to slowly rotate back down around the cylinder. So now the airflow coming out of the engine matches the exhaust valve angle a lot more as well. This was all done to try to increase their top end performance. It's great when you short shift it, low to mid, the perfect Vet 250, but it needed the top end to be competitive. No, they didn't turn it into a screamer. It doesn't continue to pull and make power up there. It just feels like it pulls at an even rate. It doesn't go flat like the old motor, but it just continues to build at just enough of a rate that you can scream it into that next corner without feeling like the motor's falling on its face. They've also done a lot of work with the mapping. If you want more of that low to mid punch of the old bike, the aggressive optional map on it gets it right back to about that point, but it maybe gives up a little bit of that top end. They also have some maps posted on the website. I tried one that was a little bit of a freer engine RPM map, rolled it through the corners a little bit easier. That was good as well. So the last thing about the engine I don't think a lot of people talk about is the reason why it's so usable, and a lot of it comes to where that power is placed in the gearing. A lot of the bikes right now, I feel like you're still shifting a lot as they've been moving that high RPM power. You're having to go all the way to second gear. The Yamaha has really good spacing between each gear. In some of the tightest sections, yes, you can go to second, but in a lot of areas, you can carry about 1 gear higher than most 250s. And then that spread from third, fourth to fifth is really even. So it makes the points at which you shift really consistent. and it makes it really forgiving as you go through the gearbox. We can keep going on and on, but the bike is extremely easy to ride. It's a very well-rounded package, and that's why it's done so well in shootouts the last couple years. It's not necessarily always the peak performance bike, everybody's #1 exact choice, but it's always second, third track to track, and it just rounds out really well. We're just getting ready to get into shootout season, so we'll see if Yamaha can carry over its victory. It won 5 out of 7 of the US shootouts last year, and I really think it has a shot to still do it even with no tweaks going into 2020.